Yeah. Okay. So today we are going to discuss military administration of Shivaji. That is part two. You see, the military comprises of lot many things, lot many subsections. For example, the fort administration was also part of military administration, but then apart from that there was infantry and cavalry, and all that was coming under the category of military. In fact, military, like what you call military today, it comprises of army, navy and air force. So altogether this is called military administration, and in that fort administration we have studied yesterday. Before that we have studied judicial administration, and today we are going to talk about the military administration. That is, mostly we will be discussing about infantry as well as cavalry. So I'll start sharing PPT. Well, okay. Are you able to see this PPT?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Okay.
sir. It's
Okay.
visible.
Okay. Okay. Fine. So when Shivaji has started his experiment of Swaraj, and he slowly started capturing forts from Adil Shah, the area of Maharashtra that is near Pune, from where Shivaji has started his experiment of Swarajya, was occupied under the control of Adil Shah, Sultan of Bijapur. And initially, when Shivaji started his experiment, can you guess what he must have organized first? Was it infantry or cavalry?
Sir, I guess cavalry because it consists of horse and men.
Uh huh. Okay. Anything else?
And I guess, sir, then he would have done with infantry.
Yeah. Okay. So what he must have organized
Sir,
first?
infantry is that which we have elephant.
No, infantry is foot soldiers.
Infantry, infantry, yes, sir. Infantry is foot soldiers.
Foot soldiers.
Okay.
So what he
Sir,
must have?
then first he must have done infantry first.
Yeah. Okay. Any reason?
Sir, because foot soldiers उनका उनका होना जरूरी है अगर फुट सोल्जर्स पहले नहीं रहेंगे तो फिर कुछ भी डिफेंस नहीं होगा
Yes. Okay. And
इफ
what?
दे कम अंडर अटैक
Right. Okay. And what can move fast in the mountain?
सर कैवलरी हॉर्सेस
Well, okay. In contrast, if there is no proper passage, it is infantry which can move very
देन
fast in the mountain.
हाँ यस सर यस सर
Okay,
यस
see,
सर
horse can move fast, but it need a proper passage. It need a proper, if
हाँ
not
यस
if not road, but at least proper passage. If you have to climb mountain, then it's infantry which can do the job. And initially, Shivaji's kingdom was very small. With a very small band of soldiers, he started his experiment, and he conquered a few forts initially, and then most of his initial efforts were defensive efforts. So it is infantry which have played a very important role in defending his small kingdom in the mountain, because the cavalry, it's very difficult for cavalry to go deeper into the forest, but the infantry, they can suddenly attack and then run away and hide in the forest, where it will be difficult for cavalry to chase them, and that is how he very effectively organizes infantry first. And it is in fact later on, after he killed Afzal Khan, that he conquered large number of horses, set few number of elephants from that Bijapur army, and after that he started organizing his cavalry. Because cavalry is a very important instrument when you go on offensive warfare. When you attack your enemy territory, you need to suddenly attack someone and then run away. But infantry is more useful as a defensive machinery, especially in the mountainous terrain where Shivaji has started his experiment. So it is infantry first and then cavalry later that he started organizing as his kingdom went on expanding. Early he relied mostly on infantry, and he recruited for his infantry. He recruited Maules. We have discussed about Maules. The people of that mountainous region surrounding Pune were known as Maules in the Western Ghat, and he also recruited certain Musketeers. Musketeers means, do you understand the meaning of musketeers? Yes? Yes or no? Well, musketeers were people who can fire the gun, who used to fight with the gun, and they will call Hatkaris. Those people were from Konkan, but we can understand that during those days, guns were not very well refined as we have now. They were very crude kind of weapon, but nevertheless, they were quite effective. But their number used to be very less. In fact, manufacturing of gun was not being undertaken in India, and most of these guns were bought from the European who used to come for trading, like British and French and Portuguese, and those people they used to sell the substandard material to the Indian native and keep the better weapon for themselves. And these people, Maoris and Hitkaris, they were very expert climber, and they were quite a good marksman. Their aim was very good. They could shoot the enemy from a distance. They were also expert in sword fighting, and their height, if you compare with the North Indian people, these Maoris people, they are having shorter height, but they are very sturdy. They can put up with lot of hardship, lot of hard work, and their nature, terrain, and their training. It made them very suitable people for the guerrilla warfare. They will come in number, small number, and suddenly attack and then withdraw to the mountainous terrain. They were in fact quite familiar with this mountainous terrain, and they very effectively use that tactics against the invading enemy. So this infantry, they followed the tactics of attacking and escaping, which I have already mentioned. And cavalry in fact constituted a very small part initially. Cavalry constituted a very small part of Shivaji's army. Just a minute, 8 minutes. Initially, but later on, after the victory over Afzal Khan, the number of cavalry has increased. And it is recorded in the Bakhar that at the time of Shivaji's death, Shivaji had a very substantial number, that is 1 lakh cavalry and 1 lakh infantry. It was quite a huge army if you take into consideration his small kingdom. But he has to fight in all direction. And different arms that were used by Shivaji's people, it constituted of swords, shields, daggers, poniards. Poniard is a kind of long knife, straight rapiers. I'll show you some of the pictures. Spears, bows and arrow, and whenever possible, matchlock. Matchlock is nothing but a gun. So this is a typical Maratha sword, which was not very long, and as the Maoris, they were shorter people, so they could very effectively wield this weapon. And these are the different type of weapon. This is called khanda, this is khanjar, then katar, it's a very small weapon, and this is the talwar, typical sword. Then this is the danpatta. Danpatta used to be quite a long weapon, and there used to be certain expert, like Baji Prabhu Deshpande, who fought in the Ghodkhind, was expert in danpatta. This used to be a bit flexible blade, but it was very effective if a person is expert in wielding that danpatta. It's a bit long sword. The enemy could not come near the person who is wielding this danpatta. Then samshir, it's a sword, one type of sword, and firangi is a straight sword. Apart from that, this is a straight rapier. It's again a type of sword which is having a little thinner blade and straight. And these are the different kind of spears which were used during those days. This is a very crude, having a wooden handle, very crudely shaped. This is a little bit polished one, and these are the different type of spears. And this is a matchlock. Earlier these guns used to be a very bigger size, and they had to be loaded from the top. You see there is no magazine here, as it comes in the modern gun. Modern gun will have magazine here, somewhere here, and in that there will be bullets. So you just have to, you don't have to every time put bullets from the top. But during those days, the bullets had to be put from the top. If you remember the revolt of 1857, the Enfield gun was of similar type. You have to keep it upright and tear off the cover of the bullet and put the bullet from the top, and then fire the gun. So it took certain time. So this gun, though it can be effective from a long distance, but from a short distance it was not very effective, because once you fire the gun, it takes time to load the gun and fire it again. And by the time, if the cavalry is fast, it will reach close to you, and creates slaughter. That is how the Marathas used to win the war. They were later on, during Peshwa's period, post Shivaji's period, they were known to be very swift horsemen, and that was their greatest advantage. Well, let us come back to Shivaji's period. So this was another weapon. Bows and arrows were used by Marathas. This was offensive and defensive weapon both. It can be used for the protection of the fort, as well as the cavalry, while riding the horse, can use it against the enemy. And this is a typical race of the Maratha horseman. He will have a pair of drawers, and then cotton jama, and then on the top of it jacket, and there will be a turban and the cloth tied around his waist. And during the latter period, during Peshwa's period, the Maratha horseman was known to be very swift, as well as very good in wielding the uh, the spearman, because spear, they used to use the long spear, and they can attack the enemy from their distance while remaining comparatively at a safer distance. These were the breeches. This is, I'm just showing you the picture. I'm not sure whether these kind of breeches were used by the Marathas. What is the meaning of breeches? You should be knowing. So breeches is a kind of three-fourth that we wear nowadays, but it used to be a bit tight fitting, so that you can easily move around and feel fit to fight in the battle. Well, now let us talk about rank structure in the infantry. Infantry and cavalry had a different rank structure. In infantry, for example, if you remember, on the fort, for 9 soldiers there used to be one naik. But in case of infantry, for 10 men there used to be one officer called naik. And now, if you remember, Havaldar was a very important post there in the fort administration. Now, Havaldar designation is used here in infantry also, but here Havaldar was head of 5 naik. One naik will have 10 soldiers under him, and the 5 naik, that will be comprising of 50 people plus 5 naik. So 55 people will be commanded by Havaldar in infantry. And over 100 Havaldar, sorry, over 100 people. So one havaldar will be having a 55 people. So over 100 people there will be one jumladar. So one jumladar will be having 2 or 3 havaldar under him, and each havaldar will be having 5 naik under him. So Jumladar was a post which commanded 100 soldiers, and the commander of 1,000 was for 10 Jumladar. There used to be one commander called Hazari. So Hazari will be having 1,000 soldiers under him, commanded by Jumladar, and then Havaldar, and then Naik. And then over 7 Hazari, there was a person called Sir Naubat, and he commanded 7,000 people infantry. Esaji Kank was first Sarnobat of Shivaji's infantry. All right. So these are the rank structure, and about the salary. All these infantrymen, Shivaji had tried that they should be receiving regular salary from the government, and not a land assigned to them for the service to the state. And soldier generally, from the account that we get from different sources, he received 4 to 12 rupees per month, and Jumladar, he received 100 hons per month. And then Jumladar, as he was commanding near about 100 soldiers, plus Havaldar, and plus 1 or 2 Havaldars, and plus 5 naik. So he had quite a relatively very respectable people to look after and command. So he was assisted by clerk called Sabnis. Do you remember Sabnis was also post in the fort, but there his work was different, and now here Sabnis is a kind of assistant to Zumladar, and he was paid different salary, that is 40 hoons per month. And then Hazari, who used to command 1,000 soldiers, infantryman, used to get 500 hoons per year, and he was also assisted by his Sabnis, that is his clerk, and his subordinates, his clerk, he has to look after a substantial number of people, almost 1,000 people, and he will get more salary, that is 100 to 125 hounds per year. And this was a regular infantry, but at the time of the war, this regular infantry was also supported by the irregular troops. Chhatrapati Shivaji used to call upon the people, send messages, and the people who were basically farmers, agriculturists, they will join hands, support this infantryman at the time of the war. So, but they were not paid very regular salary. They were given grain in lieu of their service. Well, now after the defeat of Abdul Khan, Shivaji also started developing his cavalry. It was requirement for the long distance campaign, for war against Bijapur and Mughal. And here, small cavalry, one unit of cavalry, it was consisted of 25 people, 25 troopers, and the regular people who the mounted soldiers, the cavalrymen who were in the regular service of Shivaji were called Bargirs, or they were also called Paga. And here also rank structure was different than what we have in infantry. For over 25 men, there used to be one Havaldar, and then five Havaldar will be commanded by one Zumladar. Zumladar, like infantry, here also he had 100 men under him, and over 10 Zumladar, that is now 1,000 people, he will be commanded by Hazari. And then we also have higher rank, that is Panch Hazari, who is commanding 5,000 cavalrymen, 5,000 soldiers. And we come across the top cavalry commander, who were also called Sir Naubat, that is Netaji Palkar, Prataprao Gujar, Hambirao Moite. They were famous cavalry commander of Shivaji's time. Well, and for every unit of 25, 25 cavalrymen consisted of one unit, and for each unit there used to be a person called Nalband, who was farrier. So what was his job? His job was to shoe horses, the shoe during the march, their shoes, the hoof of the horse is being there is a called horseshoe, kind of C-shaped, metal C-shaped iron strip, which is nailed to the hoof of the horses. And this Nalband, he was responsible to at every stop to ensure that all the horses of cavalrymen are having that nal, which is called nalband. That is a horseshoe, C-shaped horseshoe, made up of iron, and that is to be nailed to the hoof of the horses. And see, at the same time, there will be a person called Pakhali. Pakhali, the responsibility of Pakhali was to carry water. There used to be a bags, huge bag made up of leather, and in that bag he will carry water so that he can give it to the soldiers at every stop. And Paga Jumladar, that is a commander of 100, he used to get salary of 500 hons per year, and he had right to use palki. Cavalry commander was more respected than infantry probably, and he was assisted by Muzumdar, like he was almost like a clerk who kept an account, but this Muzumdar was also paid different salary from 100 to 125 hon. And above that, Hazari, he was paid salary of 1,000 hons per year. And for he was also assisted by Muzumdar and a Maratha Karvari. He will be assisted by Karvari, steward, and also a revenue writer called Jamanavis. So, Hazari was having a quite a big establishment, and for these people like Muzumdar of Hazari and Karvari and Jamanavis, 500 homes were separately assigned. And the account of military income and expenditure are to be signed by all these four people. Hazari will sign, Muzumdar will sign, Karvari will sign, and Zamanavis will be signed. So, the check and balance system Shivaji has tried to follow here as well. And Abu Hazari, there was Panch Hazari, and he drew the salary of 2,000 pounds per year. And like Hazari, he also had establishment to assist him in the administration of his 5,000 troops. So he was assisted by Muzumdar, Karvaris, and number of clerks. He will have his own reporters and spies to assist him during the campaign. The Panchahazari is on the top of Panchahazari. There will be Sarnavat, who will be kind of commander of the whole cavalry. Now, apart from this, Paga and Bargis, there used to be people called Shiledar, and how they differed from these Pagas and Bargir. Shiledar used to be not in the regular service of the state, but Shiledar will join the forces at the time of the war, and these Shiledar used to bring their own horses, and they were organized separately on the same pattern. For example, Shiledar forces, there will be again 25, and about 25 there will be, if 25 Shiledars join together, the one person will be appointed as a Havaldar, and then 100 Shiledar, for 100 Shiledar there will be one Jumladar, so on and so forth. But then overall, they will be looked after. They will be commanded by Sarnavat of cavalry. That is a commander, highest commander after the king of cavalry. All right, and it is recorded that out of 1 lakh cavalry that Shivaji had at the time of his death, nearly one fourth were Shiledar. So you can understand that 25,000 were Shiledars working in the cavalry of Chhatrapati Shivaji. One important factor of Shivaji's army is iron discipline. He was very strict about discipline, and during the rainy season, generally the cavalrymen, they stayed in cantonment where the grain, fodder, and medicines were kept. The huts were kept ready for them, and all the most of the rainy season they spent at in those cantonment. And after Dashera, or on the day of Dashera, which was considered as an auspicious day, they march out to the enemy territory as directed by the king. And at the time of the departure, the list is made of the belonging of the soldier, and on return it is verified that you have what kind of belonging you had at the time of starting your march. You have the same thing. Anything that is extra is confiscated. And it was it was duty of the commanders, all the commanders, Havaldar, Jumladar, that they should submit all the loots to the king. And during the time of the campaign, when you are attacking enemy territory, you need to subsist, you need to survive on the loot that you capture from the enemy territory. You have to capture grain and fodder from the enemy territory, and you have to survive on that, so that the expenditure of campaign is minimized. Shivaji had a very strict instruction that no woman, female slave, or dancing girl is allowed to accompany the troop, and any soldier who is violating that is very strictly punished. Sometimes he is beheaded, and Shivaji had strict instruction that no woman or child to be captured during the time of the war from enemy territory. Man can be captured, but not Brahmins, and this is what is written as at Adnapatra. And Shivaji had a very he used to give a very minute instruction. He used to observe and give a very detailed instruction. For example, in Adnapatra, Shivaji writes to, I mean, it is in fact written by Ramchandra Panta Amatya, but Ramchandra Panta Amatya's all that writing is based on Shivaji's policy of administration. So Shivaji writes to his troop that in a cantonment, when you go to sleep, ensure that you are switching off, you are putting off the lamp, lamp which is burning. So if you don't put off the lamp, what will happen is the lamp is burning and it is having a wick made up of cotton. That wick will be carried away, burning wick, if it is carried away by the mice, by the mouse, there will be he may it may carry it to the fodder storage or the grain storage, and all that fodder and grain will be burned. And if the fodder and grain will be burned, your animals and your men will not get food, and they will start rioting. So that kind of minute instruction Shivaji used to give to his people. He used to say, don't make the cantonment at one place every year, change it. Because when cantonment comes and when the soldiers stay at one place for a very longer period, they start giving trouble to the surrounding area. They may cut the wood from somebody's agriculture land, which he forbids. He says ki the tree on the agriculture land of the people are not to be cut. But during after Shivaji's time, this discipline had deteriorated in the Maratha army, and later on it had a very tragic consequences. Shivaji's instruction, like not to carry women, was done away with, and during the Peshwa's period, Peshwa's army were accompanied by women, as it was done with the Mughal army, and that has proved that used to hamper the movement. This became one of the important reason of the defeat of the Marathas in Panipat 1761, which we'll be discussing in the fourth semester. Well, then Sabasat Bakar gives an example of how strict Shivaji was. For example, when Shivaji went to South and he went to meet the Qutub Shah of Golconda, and he had very strict instruction that during the march you are not supposed to loot the people. And some of the soldiers of Maratha army, they have indulged into the looting, and they were punished very severely. They were killed, and their head was displayed on the spear. So that was a kind of warning to everybody. So the cutting of the head of 3 4 people, it has ensured that hereafter the march remained very peaceful. The huge Maratha army marched through the Golconda territory reached to Bhagyanagar, Hyderabad now, and they did not create any trouble for the population around them. And this has increased Shivaji's prestige in the southern India. And but for even in spite of that, there are certain incidences that Shivaji's man has created trouble. For example, there are incidences that at Chafal in Konkan, which is a pilgrimage place, and it is said that Shivaji's men, it is recorded that Shivaji's men has created trouble, and they trouble the pilgrimage, ask the money, they snatch money from them. Similarly, a regiment at Chiploon, they forcibly took the provision, as they were facing shortage of supply. They forcibly took the grain from the surrounding area. So Shivaji's warning, in spite of Shivaji's warning not to forcibly take the grain from the people, this kind of incidents were reported. They are recorded. One of the important advantage of Shivaji's cavalry is swift movement. As I told you, they were without any heavy baggage. For example, during Shivaji's march to south, there was a foreign traveler who visited Shivaji's camp, and he said that I have seen the Shivaji's huge army camping in the open in the night. There were only two tents, one for Shivaji and another one was for his chief commander. So putting up elaborate tent and all that kind of baggage was not there, as there was not much of baggage. There were no women with them. They could move very swiftly from one place to another place, and that has proved to be one of the great strength of Maratha cavalry. And apart from that, Shivaji ensured that for every two soldiers, these two soldiers will be having their own independent horses. There will be one extra horse. So one horse can be always moving without having a rider. So that horse will be relatively fresh. So you can continue to ride and giving race to one of the horse out of three, and that has ensured the swiftness, that has increased the speed of Shivaji's cavalry. The soldiers died used to be very simple. They were coming from the peasant stock, and they gathered provision as they moved. Very simple, like the Marathas during those days now also use bhakri and chutney, and very very little. They were not addicted to any pleasure. Shivaji did not allow, and in any case, the poor people, they generally have any spare money. The mountainous terrain was not fertile from where this people were recruited. So they were in any case brought up in poverty and were not addicted to any kind of rich diet or any kind of luxury. So it was easier for them to adapt to the very harsh life of the cavalryman under Shivaji. And in contrast to this Mughal army, it was having a huge baggage. Though they used to fight good fighter on the plain land. Mughal cavalry was also famous. But during Akbar's time, Mughal cavalry was known for its swift movement. But by the time of Aurangzeb, it became a huge moving city. Like it will have huge baggage. There will be a royal tent, and there will be women and slaves, and it became a kind of slow moving city, city, and it was easier for Shivaji to attack them. Another important dimension of Shivaji's military administration were his spies. So these spies played a very important role in planning campaign. They used to give a very minute information to Shivaji, and these spies have played a very important role during Surat attack as well as Shivaji's attack on Shaista Khan. Surat, before Shivaji attacks, the Bahirji Naik was the head of the spy system. The spies of Bahirji Naik, and it is said that Bahirji Naik himself had went to Surat first, and he took all the detailed information about the who are the rich merchants, which area is weak, how many soldiers are there, and what is the right time to attack. And with this information, Shivaji could effectively plan and make his campaign successful. And same thing was done when Shivaji attacked in the night to Shaista Khan, where he's staying, how many soldiers are there, those kind of information. And you can understand that the risk that he took while attacking Shaista Khan. With 300 soldiers, he enters into the huge Mughal camp and attacks Shaista Khan in his bedroom. Well, Shivaji was, generally it is believed that Shivaji was not a religious bigot. He fought against Aurangzeb, but that did not mean that he disliked Muslims. In fact, there were 700 Pathan. The Pathans in the Indian history, very significant of them were known as mercenaries. They will join hands with anybody who is willing to pay them. So these 700 Pathans, they were dismissed from the service of Adil Shah, and then they approached Shivaji. And many of Shivaji's lieutenant, the Maratha noble, they advised Shivaji not to accept them in your service. You cannot trust these people. But Shivaji nevertheless accepted them in their service, and they have served Shivaji. The main cavalry and the main army, sometimes it was supported by the feudal army of Patandara. For example, when Shivaji has marched to Surat, the certain armies of certain Maratha Vatandar, they joined with him. But Shivaji in general did not encourage this Vatandar army. He was more in favor of relying on his regular troops. Well, he was regular in the payment to the soldiers. He also rewarded any soldier for any exceptional special act of bravery that was shown by the soldier during the time of the war. In case a soldier dies in the service, Shivaji ensured that his family is being taken care of. The wounded soldiers are treated by the state. For example, after the Afzal Khan war, Shivaji had a meeting and ensured that those who died for him, their son, if they are eligible for service, they are grown up, they are enrolled into the service. Otherwise, their widows are paid pension, and the wounded soldiers are treated. So, if you have to sum up the Shivaji's administration, we can say that from a defensive initially, when his empire, when his kingdom was begin to be established, he was defensive, very effectively used the infantry and the mountain and the guerrilla warfare. But as as he became bolder, after the defeat of Afzal Khan, he increasingly organized his cavalry and went on offensive, attacking the Adil Shahi territory mainly. Bijapur was humbled by him, and finally, Bijapur has to ask for support of Shivaji against Mughal. and that is how he moved from infantry to cavalry. But nevertheless, infantry as it continued to be important, as he had 1 lakh infantry at time of his death, and it was swiftness of his cavalry that was the very big, very great strength of the Maratha cavalry under Shivaji. Which the Marathas have later on given up. As you know, they become very bold and they thought that we can win any war, like the Mughals started believing, and they used to move with a very baggage. Like when Sadashirao Bhau later on in 1760 marched to Panipat to fight against Ahmad Shah Abdali, he carried huge baggage with him, huge cannon and women and the people who wanted to go on pilgrimage, and finally that had proved to be quite disastrous. So here, Shivaji's military administration is over. One part of military is navy. So naval administration is the only topic that is left now, and that we will be taking up in the next class. I will give information when the next class will be. So far, do you have any doubt? Tell me.
No, sir.
Okay. Aja, I wanted to ask one thing. Uh, do all of you are having WebEx install in your mobile? Is it necessary to have WebEx install if you want to join the meeting?
I don't think so, sir, because गूगल पे लिंक डालो तब भी खुल जाता है.
है ना मतलब
बट आई
हाँ
हाँ बट आई गेस मोस्ट ऑफ हम लोगों के पास है वेबएक्स
अच्छा
इंस्टॉल.
अच्छा, आप में से कोई ऐसा है क्या कि जिसके मोबाइल पे वेबएक्स नहीं है फिर भी वो ज्वाइन कर रहा है? अच्छा, एक मिनट, मैं रिकॉर्डिंग बंद कर देता हूँ, जस्ट अ मिनट.